everyone, it's Phantom A. So, I'm sure some of you may remember the trend that used to go around where people would use weak Pokemon to beat whole Pokemon games, and I was just thinking about other games this could possibly apply to and figured, hey, I can make a series about this on Paper Mario. And so now I'm setting out to do partner-only challenges where I use only one partner with no interference from Mario. The structure will be mostly the same as Pokemon challenges, but I'm adding some of my own rules, like how you can't buy items from shops or Superguards are banned. So it begs the question, which partner will do the best? How about the worst? Well, that's what I'm setting out to give an informed opinion on. So what we're going to do is talk about all 7 of Mario's partners in the 1000 Year Door, talk about their moves, weaknesses, and generally how they're expected to perform. And feel free to leave any objections in the comments down below, alright? Just keep in mind, I'm going to be going from best partner to worst. With that being said, let's get started. It's showtime! So starting this list off will be Yoshi. Now, what makes Yoshi so strong is that he has not just one, but 2 moves that hit multiple times. And his second move, Stampede, can make very quick work of multiple enemy loadouts and bosses, like the second encounter with the Shadow Sirens. It may be expensive on FP, but fortunately that isn't a problem for Yoshi since Ground Pound is such a strong move. And bosses more often than not will only ever have one target. Yoshi has a reputation for being a very offensively gifted partner. All of his moves have genuine utility against at least some bosses. Ground Pound and Stampede exploit attack up badges and statuses extremely hard, and lead to catastrophic damage, especially if you can guide your HP down into peril. And bosses generally don't have much defense against the onslaught he can unleash either. Most of them, namely S'more, Cortez, and Magnus Von Grapple 2.0, can be utterly throttled just with a bit of chip damage, followed by just getting ground pounded into the dirt by a Yoshi gasping for air with very few exceptions like say Grotus. Even Gloomtail can't survive if you try to start the fight with only 1 HP, thanks to life shrooms. And thanks to Stampede, very few items found lying around will ever be outright required to progress without shot points. You can expect to see a lot of the same from Yoshi, but if it ain't broken, don't fix it. His Gulp being a move that hits only once but can hit the foe behind who he targets is also niche, though it will see some rare use. There isn't much he can do in the way of protecting Mario, mainly being limited to shrinking some bosses with Mini Egg, but it's so situational it may as well not even be a point in his favor, and it isn't like he needs it. In TTYD, the best defense really is a good offense, and Yoshi's overwhelming power will mean battles can end very fast, and Mario will be in very little to no danger, but a pinch of peril will go a very long way. Next in line to contrast with a partner that's unmatched in offense, a partner that is spectacular in defense. If you're thinking I'm referring to Coops, well, no. I will explain later, but I'm actually talking about Flurry. Flora gets a bad reputation among most Paper Mario players because she doesn't hit like a warhead. But she actually is a very strong partner in an environment where your resources are limited. She has the second highest HP set among the partners, but is the absolute hardest one to KO thanks to her signature lip lock. Most bosses cannot match her HP drainage, with the only real outliers being S'more, Magnus Von Grapple 2, and the second round of the Shadow Sirens. Body Slam is a solid attack, but is not nearly as exploitable. But arguably the most important move she has, at least for regular enemies, is her Gale Force. What makes this move so strong is that it's able to remove whole rows of enemies upon use, and it solidly covers her weakness in attacking enemies where direct contact was dangerous like Bristles and Embers. And it also has a niche in Cortez's boss fight where it blows away weapons and it's permanent when it does do that. On the defensive side, she is also capable of protecting Mario with a status move in Dodgy Fog, making Mario evasive for as many as 4 turns. For all her strengths, however, she has a very big weakness, and that's that she can't do much against bosses with multiple targets that are immune to Gale Force. They will slow her to a crawl, and may even prove to be able to overwhelm her healing abilities. And then there are also fights like Bowser and Kammy Koopa that can actually heal faster than Flurry can damage, at least up to a very limited extent. However, she still has her lifelines and scavenge items if she needs them. Battles will be slow and painful, but more often than not, the death will be her foes, not her. Following one female, we have another in Goombella. Goombella has arguably even higher damage potential than Yoshi against single targets, but is significantly more limited in what she can actually do against most required fights with standard enemies. Spiky foes and embers come up quite a bit, and there aren't nearly enough offensive items you can find for free to allow Goombella passage, especially not as early as in the Glitz Pit, where the number of spiky enemies can't even be counted in one hand, unless you were to count in binary, but we both know it doesn't actually count. This also surely will be a problem for her in Chapter 5 with all the Ember loadouts to exist. Barring those, her prowess against bosses is a sight to behold, as even though she has the most bosses to contend with, only Rock Hawk really forces her to play more passively with charge. The rest of the bosses can be exploited hard with some patience and a good old head missile via her head bonk. She also has her natural attack power increased both on head bonk and multi bonk when she ranks up. However, unlike Yoshi, her most devastating move costs FP, which is fortunately not enough to really offset how strong she is, and can even lead to some crafty tactics with items like point swap to fall into peril more easily. For as strong as her multi-bonk is though, her other moves are ultimately pretty worthless. Tattle can only really serve to replace Peekaboo for the BP cost, and star power is meaningless as long as Mario isn't attacking, and Riley Wink is completely useless, except for the mostly criminally insane people trying to use it for point swap shenanigans. And hello, double dip costs the same amount of FP. So Goombella can bring people serious head trauma, but it'll take some serious shopping to get there because she's just that limited. Truly a one-trick pony. Following that firebrand is a partner that I feel is relatively unexplored for his kit, and that's Bombery. Now, I'm honestly very unsure how he will even perform long term, but he has the highest base HP of any partner in the game, and higher damage potential than both Coops and Vivian, making him an effective tank, but also one of the most expensive attacks in the entire game. 9 FP before Flower Saver P's for an attack that hits everything for 8 damage is a pretty hefty trade-off, which likely will mean Bombery has the highest FP max of all the partners. Bosses with high defense like Magnus 2, Gloomtail, and Bowser also have potential to force a lot of item usage to keep him charged to explode, but as long as he stays within scavenge constraints, by all means. And there are plenty of gem and jellies and whack-a-bumps if he needs them. His basic attack, Bomb, is also generally reliable, and even does a flat 4 damage at base rank, so it should carry us fine through what's left of Chapter 5. Other moves include Bomb Squad, which has a lot of tactical merit when combined with items that can result in some really clever methods of beating bosses, like say Cortez, Smork, and Bowser and Kammy Koopa. And speaking of Bowser, Hold Fast will be a useful move for once because of a quirk in Bowser's AI. There really isn't much to be going on for Bombery's game plan if Bomb Squad is not going to be a factor in it. It's just explode and let your HP carry you through more often than not. Bombery's a fan favorite among casual players, but more seasoned veterans will see him as on the weaker side. Let's just hope that he doesn't backfire on us. Speaking of fire, next up is going to be Vivian. Vivian's got a very similar issue to Goombella where half of her moves are either extremely situational or near entirely useless. But unlike Goombella, she lacks the massive damage potential of either her or Yoshi, and is more of a jack of some trades but a master of none. She is the only partner that can deal passive damage through burns, but her attack power is otherwise below average. Fiery Jinx is a decently strong move by the time you get it, but it reaches peak power as soon as you can learn it because being ultra ranked does not boost its power at all. Which is honestly a shame considering Coops has a stronger power shell we're making up, but I digress. Vivian's HP is also average, but that generally will not be enough to cut it when she has such poor defensive attributes. Veil protects Mario and herself for a turn, but she gives her foe a free turn to attack. And what if the bow charges a second time? Well, I guess you're using Veil again. And don't even get me started on Infatuate. Yeah, Vivian is not exactly going to be a great partner on her own. Even though she's always smiling, it will be a very uphill battle for her. There are a fair bit of bosses that she performs well against at least, but she also struggles against Dupless. Freaking Dupless in Chapter 4 because she's limited to base rank, no badges, and that leaves her really high and dry. Definitely below average compared to other partners before her, and she will need to reach for the stars if she wants any hope of surviving. Anyhow, I waited this long to speak on Coops. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why is Coops this low? He's arguably the best defensive partner in the game, does an excellent job at protecting Mario with his Shell Shield, has cheap and potent methods of sweeping rows of enemies in both Power Shell and Shell Slam, and he has the natural point of defense, which affords him tactics no other partner can use, like charging while taking 0 damage every turn for all of the hardest bosses leading up to Chapter 8. What's actually the problem here? Well, to illustrate, Coops was the first partner-only challenge I ever did. Why? Because I knew the other partners were able to beat the game on their own. And I knew Goombella would hardly be interesting since she has to buy a ton of items as is. But Coops, oh man, his weaknesses are very, very significant. First off, there are some bosses he flat out cannot reach. Cortez, Grodus, and Bowser and Kami-Koopa are among the worst he has to fight and require either some crafty item usage, incredible luck, or both. And lots of the regular enemies, for instance like in the Glitz Pit, cause trouble here too. Likewise for Goombella, but maybe not as much. Second off, his HP is among the lowest in the game, and even if he has a natural point of defense, piercing attacks become much more common in Chapter 8 and onward. There are other weaknesses that hold him back, like how he really isn't much better than Vivian in damage potential, and it forces him to rely on charge to avoid being inefficient with what offensive items he has because he physically cannot afford to use them whenever coming across a boss he cannot immediately reach. Or how some enemies like X-Punches or Grodus X's cannot be targeted. Not even the latter when they look like they're close to the ground. Coops is the definition of a sidekick. He is a fantastic supporting fighter, but he has very real flaws that keep him from being capable on his own. It's just such a shame. I just cannot help but feel like he just got robbed from being at a higher spot on this list. But then we have Miss Mouse. All the prior partners are able to function pretty well still, and have traits to help survive, even with their limited options. Yoshi and Goombella have massive damage potential, Coops and Flurry are great defensively, you get the idea. But Miss Mouse is bad. Like, really freaking bad. Other partners have 2, maybe 3 good moves that can also serve to be viable attacks. Even Vivian has her Fiery Jinx, and Bombery has Bomb Squad, but Mouse only has 1 attack, and it's Love Slap. A weak, piercing attack that at most does 4 damage before badges or statuses. That's pitiful. And to make it worse, it's affected by elemental traits like fire, as well as spikes. It's also only able to hit 1 target on the ground in the very front. Even with shot points, she can't even beat Cortez because of his 3 phases. And the only target in that fight is counted as spiky. So that's really bad. Smorg? Yeah, good luck surviving long enough there. No choice but to spam charge and pray you survive the Love Slap really hard. And other bosses, she just doesn't hit very hard against. And as if that wasn't bad enough, she has bad longevity too, only having 25 HP. That's equal to Coops, but she has no defense to back it up. And that's her only attack too. Kiss Thief is okay for getting extra items, but that won't matter much when standard items won't be enough for her. And of course, it's not gonna help for bosses either. Tease is trash, as it's only able to give you a chance that enemies won't always hit. And Smooch? Well, heals Mario a decent bit, but it's the most expensive partner move in the game. At 10 FP. Just why? And for only 10 HP, you're better off using Double Dip. It's cheaper, and what else will you use your FP for anyway? Just, I'm not even sure this run will be possible. I've seen Cappy do a run with only Miss Mouse, and it was one of the most painful demonstrations I've ever seen. We seriously will need a lot of help, likely from Zesty, but I feel like even Mario may need to get involved. Pray for her, folks. She's going to need it. So which partner are you most interested and excited to see? Let me know in the comments down below. And if this interests you in any way, subscribe down below. And while you wait for more videos to come out, check out my Coops Only challenge. I'll see you on the video.